I already got the garlic out of here. Now I'm gonna pull the rest of these purple Magic Molly potatoes. Guten gardening, everybody. Well, today's video is going to be pretty jam-packed. I think you're gonna get a little purple potato harvest. You're gonna see some planting of fall potatoes. And as I'm doing all that, one of the things that I think I haven't really addressed enough is this idea of succession planting. So you're gonna work with me a little bit in the garden, getting things planted, etc. But let's talk a little bit about succession planting as we get into this. So a couple of days ago, I came in here and harvested the garlic out of these 2 containers. This is a 50-gallon drum that I cut in half, and we've been growing potatoes, garlic, all kinds of stuff in here for the last couple of years. Well, I harvested all the garlic out of here, but we did have a couple of volunteer Magic Molly potatoes. Now, for those of you who don't know, Magic Molly potatoes are purple potato. It happens to be my favorite variety of potato. I love the taste, the waxiness, just the productivity of the purple Magic Molly potatoes. And so I was really happy to see a couple of volunteers grow in this spot. Now, we also had some volunteer red potatoes, red skin potatoes, grow in our other garlic bin, and a lot of commenters suggested that maybe those potatoes crowded our garlic, took some of the nutrients from the garlic. I don't know. I mean, that's one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is how cautious, how careful do we want to be when it comes to the volunteer potatoes coming up? How much care do we need to take to see if it's going to detract from the other vegetables we're growing? Well, that's for us to consider, but today I need to plant some of these Adirondack Reds, part of our fall potato planting. These are seed potatoes that I got from Wood Prairie Family Farm, and I cut them in half. They were pretty big, so I cut them in half. I could still probably cut it. I could have cut this down even further, but I cut it in half. I gave it about 48 hours or so to scab over, and I'm gonna go ahead and get these planted. But first, I'm gonna see what kind of size we got out of these purple Magic Molly potatoes. Now, it looks like there were a grand total of 2 of these plants down in here. I've got a bigger one right here, pretty substantial, and then this one right here, and I can see one of the purple Magic Mollies. Wow, that was sticking right at the surface level. So you gotta remember that the first time I planted these purple Magic Molly potatoes, and this stuff, the mix that I have in here has a lot of native soil, so we'll see how it goes with regard to digging it up. You can see it's a lot more coarse, a lot more dense. There we go. The first time that we planted these purple Magic Molly potatoes was probably my favorite harvest ever. I mean, it was such a massive return on investment that we have kept these now for coming up on, what, 4 years. And actually, I haven't shown this really, but the place where we did our first video, our first Magic Molly potato harvest, I replanted for the first time since that harvest. I replanted with Magic Mollies this year. So this particular plant gave us these potatoes, and it was a pretty small plant actually, but it gave us these potatoes plus the 2 that I harvested the first time. So not bad, but I'm wondering, this plant was a lot bigger. This one right here is a lot bigger. It's still actually in full swing, but again, I want to get these other potatoes, the Adirondack Reds, planted in here. So let's see. Ooh, it's really nice, and you can see how long they've been in here. It actually looks like they're going back, and they're going to start sprouting soon if I leave them in here any longer. So I'll have to eat these pretty quickly and see if there's anything else I missed, because that was a pretty substantial plant. It's gonna be really funny if there's not anything else down in here, and that was the bigger of the 2. Well, that is crazy. That bigger plant didn't have much of anything in there. You know, as a family, we don't have a great deal of operating space here to grow all the food that we need. And so in the grand scheme of things, a space like this, 2 little barrels, a 50-gallon drum cut in half may not look like all that much. And that's because, well, really, it's not a lot of space until you start multiplying it out 2 or 3 times in the same space. And what I mean by that is, because we planted our garlic in here in the fall, and we were able to get an early enough harvest out of here of garlic, we were able to come back in and really double this space size by getting now a second planting. Of course, we had the added bonus of some volunteer purple Magic Molly potatoes, but that's not really the point. The point is that even in a shorter growing season. I'd say we have a moderate growing season here in Zone 5, Wisconsin, but even in those shorter growing seasons, you can really maximize your space by getting multiple harvests. Now, can we do that with every single one of our fruits and vegetables? Of course not. I mean, there are some that take 100, 110 days to grow, 115 days to grow, depending on what it is that we're trying to get out of here. Some of our winter squash, that's going to take the entire growing season. But if we're smart, a lot of the vegetables that are the 60, 70-day variety, or even some of the longer ones like the garlic that allow us to come in and get a harvest in July, that still gives us a couple of months, 70, maybe even 80 days for the next crop in here. That gives us the opportunity to say, okay, this space here, what is it? Probably just over 3 square feet in each one of these. We're now essentially doubling the square footage. And in some of the beds here, depending on the length of time you have for growing, you might even be able to get 3 crops out of the same space. So I think that's something important. All right, you're gonna join me for a good bit of potato planting today. We gotta finish up planting those fall potatoes, but keep that in mind as we're going through this video, that there may be spots that you're harvesting now that you could have something that you want to plant in for the fall. The fall planting is another extension to the season. And again, I know a lot of people don't think about this, and today our focus is potatoes, but there are a lot of plants that grow really well, a lot of brassicas, a lot of other vegetables, etc., that grow really well in the fall. It's a perfect time for them. So think about how you can expand your gardening space that way. Well, first and foremost, I've got some really nice rabbit waste from our rabbits, and I'm going to be putting in here and mixing in. And this stuff is pretty fresh. I just emptied out our rabbit waste, and so, you know, the one thing about rabbit waste is you don't have to wait for it to compost before you put it into the garden. So I'm going to add some of this to each of my bins, and I'm going to add some all-purpose fertilizer, and as always I want to add some bone meal and azomite, and I'm going to go get my gloves so I can mix this up together nicely. So I think if I keep amending the soil year after year, again, we had so much of that native soil, etc., in here, but everything has been growing really well. I think it's going to keep improving this gardening space. So once I get this all mixed together nicely, I'll go ahead and plant these Adirondack Reds. Now, I had a grand total of 4 potatoes that I cut, so I've got 8 different plants, and that'll actually work really nicely, I think, for this size of a container. So I'll do 4 in each. The beautiful sprouts right there. So I'll do 4 in each of these, just like so. And that'll take care of all of our Adirondack Reds. And we'll see what kind of production we get. We'll dig down in here now that I've got this mixed nicely. It's working so much easier. I'll add my mix to the bottom here. A little bit of soil on top, and down we go. So I've got my 4 planted in here. I'm just gonna add a little bit of hay on top. Keep some of the moisture in, just like so. And I'll plant the other container. Now, while I'm at it, I've got this long raised bed here. And at this end, I've got about 3 or 4 feet where I harvested a whole bunch of spring garlic and added a ton of our rabbit waste. So there's more rabbit waste here than just about anywhere else, I think, in the garden. And I want to see what this does with some potatoes. So what I'm going to do is plant some of my dark red Norlands, again from Wood Prairie Family Farm. So let's go ahead. I don't think I've ever, well, I know I have never grown potatoes in this bed since we started it. So I think I can get about a half a dozen in this spot. Let's get these down in here. I've already fertilized everything, but again, I don't know how much fertilization I need to do given the fact that I've got all this rabbit waste here, and I think that's going to help out quite a bit. All right, that's done. And so now I think while I'm at it, I'm just going to get the rest of these planted. All right, I've got this small bed in the front yard, or one side of our front yard here, where I was supposed to have fingerlings growing. For some reason, only one of them came up. They were a little bit old. So I'm going to use this to plant our Yukon Golds. That should be pretty simple. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I can get, yeah, I can get all of my Yukon Golds planted in here. And we've only grown fingerling potatoes in here in the past. So We'll see how the Yukon Golds do. It feels really good to get all of this planted. Now the other place I'm going to plant some more potatoes, and these are going to be my red cloud potatoes. Here on the left side, you can see our sweet potatoes are okay. These are purple sweet potatoes, and these are finally starting to come along. But in the other side of the bed, most of the slips didn't do so well. So I'm actually going to come in and I'm going to plant potatoes here. And it does look to me like a couple of the sweet potatoes might still take off, although it's really late in the season. So I'm going to leave those and just plant around with these red clouds. And the last place I'm going to plant some fall potatoes is here in one of our original green stalks, where I'm growing beets already around the bottom where I have some empty pockets. So this will be it. This will be all the fall potatoes that I got from Wood Prairie Family Farms. Of course, I have to fertilize. I just wanted to show you how easy it is with this mix. I'll get all these planted. Well, folks, I'm pretty happy with how this morning has gone so far. I got all the rest of our fall potatoes planted. We've had a nice little conversation about succession planting, and I've got plenty more to do out here today. And as I look around here today, I've got some more weeding that has to be done. I've actually got a couple of kohlrabi that I think are ready to harvest, so I gotta get those out of here. One's growing in our compost. And I'm gonna mention this at the end. We do have a coupon for 5% off any Wood Prairie Family Farm potatoes, which they have in stock until the end of August. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check out that link in the description. Hey, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.